something.
And that's what Jesse. He's done that. He's got.
How many? Got so many of them.
How many of those?
I think Jesse's
like
entire
Tupperware.
Jesse's entire kitchen is just nothing.
Just Riddlers.
Yeah,
Riddler trophies.
Riddler trophy. Jesse and his family, they eat and drink out of nothing but like Riddler and A&B.
I can see his kid eating SpaghettiOs out of a Riddler trophy. Welcome to Oil and Whiskey, an Ironclad original. I am Josh Henning.
I'm Phil Gerber.
I'm Jeremy Gerber.
Tim Devlin is the owner of Devlin Rod and Customs in Wichita, Kansas. You can learn more about Tim on Instagram at Devlin Rod and Customs or at devlinrodandcustoms.com. Tim, welcome to Oil and Whiskey. Cheers.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Welcome in.
Cheers.
Oh, he's prepared.
He came prepared. I love to see it when a guest comes prepared. What are you drinking on tonight?
You're not going to want to know the answer to that, Josh. Might be something you don't like.
It's Basil Hayden's.
Hey,
It
if you like it, that's all that matters.
That's right.
Is it?
So I don't know if I like it. I drink it in an old fashioned.
Okay.
So this last summer, we went to Louisville, not knowing anything about whiskey. Got my customer with me, and he owns a liquor store. And I said, help me out. I got to figure this out. If we're here, we got to drink whiskey. Start off slow, drinking old fashioned. So I started drinking old fashions. And from there, I liked them, but trying to make them at home and replicate what's going on down there, same thing.
Yeah.
So the only thing I found that works for me is Basil Hayden, and I know you don't like it.
Hey, it doesn't matter. If you're drinking, you're drinking. Jeremy, tell everybody and tell Tim what's the secret to an old fashioned. What's the recipe?
So the secret, an old fashioned is a very simple cocktail, and you've got to be careful not to give it like the TGI Fridays recipe.
All the bitters?
Yeah, where you're just like muddling. It's like a fruit smoothie, because it's really the most simple drink there is. I mean, you take a sugar cube, and you just drop that sugar cube in there. I use those natural, like, you know, what the hell are they called?
I know what you're talking about.
Drop that sucker in the glass, 2 dashes of bitters on it, a little spoonful of water, muddle that up, and then it's just like an ounce of bourbon. And that's all there is to it. And then garnish that thing with a little rind from an orange, and you're off to the races.
Drop a fancy cherry in there.
Yeah, a little fancy cherry in there. But the common mistake is just taking like cherries and oranges, and then you take the muddler out and then you start smashing it up, and before you know it, you got a fruit smoothie.
They add tonic water and
Don't do that.
I reckon you get your ass kicked for doing something like that. Tonic water, Sprite. So now that we got the old fashioned,
I think I've learned.
I've
I've got that pretty well down, but I'm not using a cube. I use the sugar water.
Okay.
Pre-mixing that stuff.
Nice.
Jump up to a higher proof. Jump up to a higher proof.
And a
You think so?
Yeah. Bourbon part, if you're doing an old fashioned and stuff like that, you've got so much sweet in there that
Knocks it down.
you can. I think that you'll enjoy the drink better with a higher proof, especially on an old fashioned that's sweeter.
Yeah.
When you go to drier stuff or whatever, then you can stay down a little lower. But
Yeah, some experienced bourbon guys taught us that, jumping up on the cocktails to higher proof stuff, and it's good. That was a nice little trick.
So what's been going on, man? What's today been like for you in that beautiful space and badass factory windows? I'm fucking jealous. Shit.
Today was kind of one of those slow days for me. Actually, I was kind of anticipating what was going to happen here at this meeting, but honestly, just keeping things going at the shop. It's kind of an odd time of year when you get between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and this is one of those years where we don't have anything that's debuting coming up, at the Roadster Show or anything. So honestly, we've spent the last basically 2 years since we completed Jeff's 34 trying to play catch up. During the time that we worked on Jeff's car for 2.5 years solid, and we had a lot of customers on the side that we weren't able to get to. We just had to push them off and say, you guys are going to have to wait for us to get this big project done. And so we've spent this time really finishing all of those projects, getting caught up with little things. And now we're moving on to, you guys have got some chassis for us on the way, and, working on some 4-wheel drive stuff. So we're actually doing a restoration on a Suburban as well. So we're trying to hit that square body market and the Fuelie models, the 87 through 91. So we've got a 91 3/4 ton Suburban that we're doing a restoration on. So that's kind of interesting. It's kind of going back to, okay, well, what's the fit and finish need to be like on this 91 Suburban compared to what we're all so used to? Well,
not that good if you're going to make it look like it was originally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough lesson in that you're so used to wanting to gap everything and fit everything. Like we put a set of rockers on it and looked at them and like, well, we gapped them exactly how the factory did. And I'm like, well, that looks like shit. Shouldn't we fix that? I'm like, well, that's not how it was. Okay, meet me halfway. Let's go partly between it. It looks better, but it still fits like the factory might, because that's what we're trying to represent. And that's tough.
Yeah, that is tough, man. 91 Suburban. I drove a 91 Suburban in high school for a short period of time.
Is this the famous one that got wrecked?
No, this was
the
different.
UIV.
This was a different unit, but 2-wheel drive, and it was pretty mint. But man, you put the back seat down in that and pull out the third row, and there is all the room for activities in a 91 Suburban. I mean, it's like a Motel 8 back there.
Hope you were pulling out something else later after.
But that's an interesting one that somebody's restoring. What's the story behind it? Somebody that
family heirloom.
Well, you're on the right track. Actually, it's a family member. It's my brother. So we're doing it for him. He and I grew up into this stuff, right? You know, he and I grew up in the era of, you know, all the shows on TV that were car centric and truck centric. And so, you know, we never lost track of any of that. And he bought a truck out of, I think it was out of Oregon, a number of years back. And it was a gorgeous truck, high mileage, but, had the standard peel, the GM paint peel. But other than that, man, it looked pretty solid. We got to investigating the truck, and it's got some, it had some hidden rust on the inside that we figured we'd take care of, even though it wasn't poking through. But it's just one of those things that, guys that that are my age, this stuff's coming back on us. And my brother's one of those guys, and I'd rather him come to me than go to somebody else.
That's cool.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Are you going to replicate the flaking clear coat back on there again? So the whole top of the fenders, the hood, just sheeting that off, or?
Oh God, no. But we are replicating a lot of crazy stuff that doesn't make sense, man. I mean, trying to figure out how did they do the undercoating to the grease pencil marks on the firewall, and did that bleed through the paint and all that crazy stuff.
So you're,
but who's the expert out there that's going to tell us it's wrong?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a lot of like. Is there like a Bloomington Gold
No,
Concord for 90s Suburbans? You got barn doors on it, or is that a tailgate?
No, it's a barn door.
Okay, those barn doors would kill you.
Yeah,
those things
great design.
Great design. I mean, nothing sounds quite like those barn doors closing, but and one of those gets away from you, or kid gets a finger in there, that's game over.
Yeah, or if they're timed just a little bit off.
Yeah.
When you I can't believe that even passed. Like, they'll figure it out.
Well, they came back a little bit later with the extended cab, hidden rear door on the trucks.
Yeah.
Like mid 2000s, and those are constantly slam the front, slam the back over it.
It wasn't too far after the wagons, though, either, that had the rear-facing seat that the back window rolled down and the little deflector to just put the exhaust right back in the kid's face.
Just so you didn't kill the kids in the back.
Oh, so you
it's so they got to get high.
Yeah, so you got to get
shut up for the ride home.
Put those 3 in the back. We're going cross country.
What a great era.
Crack that window a little bit.
That explains a lot about like where you're at today.
Oh yeah, 86 custom cruiser. Yeah, white with wood paneling on the back, maroon interior, sitting right there in the back driving. My dad didn't fly, still doesn't. So everywhere we went, in the back, sitting out the back window. Yeah.
Young Josh, great
Sucked.
memories. Square body stuff. I know you've got a Legend chassis heading your way.
We do.
What's that going?
Yeah,
underneath?
we've got a 90 Blazer that's going to go under. As a matter of fact, that was one that doing something a little bit different. I wanted to get as ahead of this as possible in the activity that's surrounding these trucks. And everything that we've ever done has been customer built. It's all driven by them, what they want. And this is the first time that we've built something in the shop that I plan on selling. So if anybody's out there listening and looking for a Blazer project, that's what we're planning on doing. And if we don't get a customer to jump on board, we'll take it all the way through, and it can go kind of either direction. It can be something similar to a Survivor build to as high end as they want to take it. So that's what we're planning on doing with that. And we've got an 87 Suburban that we got an RS4 chassis you guys are doing, and that one's the plan on that. And I'd say Andy kind of stole the thunder at this last SEMA, but that's kind of the idea of building that 87 Suburban, of taking it to that level of detail. Getting rid of the stock trim and doing machine trim and machine grill and taking it to that level. I kind of hope the market goes there, and I think that's a place that it could go.
Yeah, I definitely think it's headed that way. There's still so much stuff to do and higher end and cooler. And I mean, obviously, Andy set that bar pretty high.
Yep.
But that's good. When you set the bar high, then that's that many more people
Gives you
trying
something
to
aspire to be.
Yeah, strive for.
So on an 87, what's the customer like on that? I mean, where do you find a guy that comes in? It's like 87 Suburban. The thing that I always hated about the 87 Suburban is that the grill and the trim didn't fit so good. So let's machine it all. I mean, that's an open checkbook kind of deal on that. I mean, that's a lot of real estate.
Guy wants something cool.
Just bodyworking an 87 Suburban is a open checkbook deal.
Well, I guess I'll raise my hand on that one.
Hit
I'm the dumbass doing that one,
Okay.
and it's another one. It's going to be a demo for us. It's going to be something I think we can get 3 or 4 of these things a year that are that kind of caliber, and I'm hoping that we're going to see some of those. And so this 87 Suburban is something I've had since I was in college. I bought it down in Oklahoma when I was a dumb kid and have kept it this whole time. Drove it all the way through, and I went to WTech in Wyoming, and I mean it's just been around, and it's time to build it. So I think it'll be a fun one.
That's cool.
That will be. I mean, it's good thinking getting ahead of it, because that is definitely where the market's going.
It is.
And I think getting the right paint on them. I mean, the Survivor deal is tough. We ran that Survivor Legend truck through Barrett Jackson, and it did well. It would have done, I think, probably twice what it did if it was painted. Yeah, I'll never forget. I was standing up on the auction block, and the truck's coming up, and obviously, guys like you know what has gone into something like that, and we certainly do. And I'm listening to guys talk, and you got these fancy dudes and high net worth guys, and I'm listening. 2 or 3 of them are like, oh, this is the first piece of shit that's come across the auction block.
Yeah.
Just because it's not shiny. I have no idea what's underneath it, but it's tough to bring a car like that, build it on spec, have it be a Survivor, and get to be able to fetch the kind of dollars of what you're going to put into it. So I think you're on the right track. That stuff will definitely pop.
Yeah, it's coming. I mean, it's just got to be more education and guys understanding. I mean, there's something sometimes a little more desirable about knowing that it is original paint and it's held up that well, so the train of thought is the truck is in that good of shape because nothing's been, hidden or anything like that. And we all know about the shiny paint deal and how some customers sometimes just won't drive them or are afraid to do anything with them because of how nice it is. So you got to have the guys understand. But then other guys just like shiny things.
What you're doing, definitely getting ahead of the curve. It takes a couple guys to build some of these over-the-top badass vehicles to start the market. You don't know what's cool until somebody sees it most of the time, and it's cool that we got guys like you and Andy and a lot of others just stepping outside the box and taking risks and building some of these cooler, more unique trucks and taking them to that level. I think that's huge for the market and setting the trends and getting everybody else on board to follow behind it.
Well, and I hope you see a lot of the smaller SUVs, the Broncos and his Jeep are really hot, and I hope that as big as those damn Suburbans are, that doesn't hinder it. We worked on some renderings that are kind of interesting, trying to see what would happen if you chopped up one of those trucks and kind of turned it into a Tahoe, if you will, and it kind of proportions get a little awkward. But I think, with some of the Blazers and building a hardtop version of it, I think there's plenty of options for those. But I think to me, it really keys on finding somebody who's willing to let us put that quality into it, just like we're all used to, getting that fit and finish to be there. I think it's there. I think the market is whether it's not there today, but I think it's going to be there. And, we do have to take this jump, and it is a bit of a risk. Like I said, we've never done this as a shop, but I think it's going to be a fun project for us. And I hope we can get this thing done in time to debut it at the right moment. But that's the risk you run.
Well, I got to ask you. So you're talking about, obviously it's going to be built to be driven and be enjoyed and be used. So that's great. But you're also talking about debut, and you're using the words of high level of fit and finish and stuff like that. So that leads me to believe it's going to be super really nice, and you're going to debut it at a show, which also leads me to believe you're planning on like trailering it. So I would look into that at the beginning too, because those things get wider, longer, and taller than you can ever imagine, and you generally don't know that until the very last minute, until it's too late. Generally, when the car's going in the trailer to leave, like about 5 hours late, and then it's just
Shit.
a little big.
Little rude awakening.
Yeah.
We lucked out because in years past we built a handful of things, and we built them just to be as cool as they could possibly be. And one of them was like basically wide load. I mean, it was like 96 inches wide. We did a Colorado pre-runner, so that required purchasing a trailer.
That was 103 wide because the
103,
trailer
okay,
was
sorry.
101 and it was an inch outside the trailer.
So that one was a learning curve. That Rampage Camaro wide body we had to reverse tub our trailer. We cut the wheelhouses out of it because they left a little bit of wiggle room in there. We pushed that out. But those Legend trucks, we inadvertently made them perfect because they just fit.
You almost don't have to tie them down.
It's a centered backspace on a I forget it's basically a 34.5 by 1250 tire, and it makes it easy to get in the trailer because you just ride the wheelhouse. You just
They fit in our trailer.
Right.
Yeah. We did have a customer pick up
right in there
last week and didn't fit in his trailer. Yeah, he was about 2 inches narrower inside the wheelhouses than ours.
But it's tough. It presents a new challenge.
Things that you don't think about, yeah, especially when you're just coming off of toting around a 34 that fits in any trailer and is about the easiest thing to tie down. And
You could throw that 34 in the back of the Suburban. Just open those barn doors, pull it right in.
So when we were at SEMA last year, we watched in the craziness that it is of loading and unloading at SEMA. We watched a crew that I can't remember if they had a Bronco or a Scout, and they were getting it inside of an enclosed trailer. And I watched them go through the whole thing, and it was like watching Bigfoot take monster truck tires off. I mean, that's what they had to do to get this damn thing in their trailer. So, I mean, that was a good lesson for me to see that, shit, how are we going to do this? Because I went over to pick up my Suburban on my open trailer and had to back it on because, those things are wider
Right.
in the front than they are in the back. So I backed to some bitch on, not knowing it wouldn't go over the wheel wells.
yeah, man.
New challenges,
Little tips and tricks for the 4-wheel drive crowd.
Exactly. It went from trying to figure out how many race ramps and how many boards and how high up you need to jack the back of the truck to pick up the tongue of the trailer so you don't wipe out the grill or the bottom of the car. To now it's like they're just too damn wide and too tall.
There's rock crawler guys and like 4-wheel drive guys that
are
are listening to us right now. They're like,
fucking
"You're
morons."
so fucking stupid. Just put it on the trailer.
Just drive it.
Yeah. So you mentioned you and your brother, kind of, grew up into this and stuff. So it's leads me to the next question. Tell us about how you got into all this and why. We're always intrigued about why somebody who seemingly has like talent and makes good decisions and business stuff made that one horrible decision
it's
back
like a
when.
self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Well, I'm not sure that I have talent or smarts, but in the end, I think, growing up, like I said, in the time that we grew up, where every time you turn on the TV, there's nothing but, whether it's Fall Guy, Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider, you name it. Every show you watched had something going on with a vehicle, and so that was always there. My dad, I didn't grow up with a dad who was handy when it came to cars. He was passionate about cars. He loved cars, but he was a businessman. And he would hire shops like ours to have cars built. So when he became successful as a businessman, I remember as, I don't know, probably 7 or 8, maybe 9, the first car that he had sitting in our barn that was waiting to be restored. And it's all in pieces, but there was always a fascination of, well, what's going to happen to that car when it leaves here. But it was also, okay, we grew up out in the country. My parents had 80 acres that we grew up on. So, a bicycle was pretty useless back in the early 80s. You couldn't go ride that thing out in the country. So anything that had a motor was of interest. So my brother and I we'd piss our dad off. We'd steal our dad's tractor or his lawnmower and go out there and pretend it's a go-kart and try and jump these things. I mean, that was always something that we did. And so then it progressed into four-wheelers and dirt bikes and three-wheelers and, going to hospitals and all that kind of stuff. But it was always the fun that was, hey, this is something with a motor, makes noise, makes sound. And then, we'd have to tear apart our four-wheelers and re-ring them. And so that always had me involved in it. In high school, so my dad, the interest that my dad had in cars were always restored cars. They were always convertible restored cars. That's what he really liked. All domestic stuff with the exception of one car that he had, but he liked convertibles for some reason, which I've never really understood why, because in Kansas, there's not many times a year that's so nice you can drive them things. But that's what he was into. And so when I got into high school, I ended up with a buddy of mine that we became really close friends, and his dad was a hot rodder. And you drive by his house and the garage doors would be open, and he had cars. He had a 55 delivery. His son was into Novas, had a Chevy 2. First it was mini trucks, then a Chevy 2, and we'd go pull the motor and the transmission out of his dad's out of his sedan delivery and put it into his Nova. And those were the things that we started doing, and that was kind of my introduction to hot rodding. And then sadly my buddy passed away when I was in college, and so that we were always talked about maybe having a shop someday, and I talked about having a four-wheel drive shop actually. And that kind of went away at some point when I was at college, and I graduated from college, moved to Denver. I worked for a real estate investment trust, wore a fucking suit and tie every day as a financial analyst, and did that for a number of years. One day I'm walking across the street to go grab a cup of coffee, and saw a couple of guys talking about an old car, and I said, I got to get back to this. I can't keep doing this. This isn't for me. And so I went upstairs, told my boss I'm putting in my 2 weeks, not knowing exactly what the hell I was going to do. And after that, went and investigated WTech and moved to Laramie, Wyoming, and spent a year up there freezing my ass off, learning how to work on cars. And while I was up there, I was, I don't know, I was probably close to, I had one class left, and those things were like 3 months long. I had one class left, and my dad called me and said, well, what the fuck are you going to do when you finish this? It was a good question, because I really didn't have a plan. I just wanted to go do it. And he said, well, don't you have some time off in between your last class? And I said, yeah, I got a week off. And he said, well, why don't you come back here and at least interview with some shops? At the very least, you can get that interviewing down and understand what it's going to be like when you go tour the country, wherever you're going to go. Good plan, no problem. So I go back and end up interviewing with a guy named Rex Knepp. He had a restoration shop in Wichita called RK Restorations. And he was an interesting guy. He was a machinist by trade. We have a lot of aircraft in Wichita, and so he was a machinist by trade, made some money selling his machinist business, and decided to get into this as more of a hobby. Thought he'd make a little bit of money, build some Corvettes, have some fun. And he grilled me for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours in this interview, taking me around to each of the projects that he had. What would you do with this? What do you think of this? And finally, at the end, he said, Tim, I'm not interested in hiring you. And I mean, it crushed me. I thought, shit, I thought I did a pretty good job explaining myself, or at least BSing my way through it. And he said, but after hearing you talk, I think you ought to buy this shop. And I said, sir, I'm sorry, man. I am not ready for that. I said, I'm not even finished with school. I really need to go work for somebody like you first before I can go do this on my own. I said, someday, yes, I'd love to do this on my own, but right now I'm not ready for it. So I said, but I tell you what, send me your financials and some information about what all you're selling here, and we'll talk about it. So I went back up to Laramie, and I asked my instructors that I had at the time, I said, what do you think? Is this a good idea? Am I ready? Everyone, said no. Well, when you tell somebody no, that's all the more reason to go out and do it. So, I figured out that it wasn't too bad of a risk for me. And I kind of wanted to get back to Wichita. My brother was about to have his first kid, and I hadn't lived in Wichita since high school. So it had been 9 years. So anyway, so I wanted to get back to see my family and just be around them. So it was kind of all worked out. So I made a deal to take over RK Restorations when I finished. Moved back to Wichita, closed the deal, and man, at that point I was scared to death. I didn't know what I'd get gotten myself into. The guys that worked there was 3 or 4 guys at the time. All of them were older than me. I told them, I said, guys, let's meet somewhere outside of work. Go have a beer and we'll talk about what's getting ready to happen and what I'm thinking about doing. And man, I went in there and didn't know what exactly my plan was going to be. I knew that I wanted to do hot rods and customs. I knew I didn't want to do restorations. And that's kind of what started it all. And that was 19 years ago.
Damn.
How were those guys down for doing hot rods and customs? The employees at that time?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think what I figured out is one of them ended up leaving me after 3, 4 months, and he was pretty talented, but he was also one of those guys that felt like he knew better. And from a technical standpoint, he did. But he said, I just can't work for somebody that's younger than me, and he split. Matter of fact, he didn't even tell me, he just didn't show up. And the other 2 guys, one of them decided to go do aircraft, and then the other one stayed with me for a while. And after a while, we just kind of outgrew him and his skill set. He's a good guy. But when it came to what we wanted to do, he really needed to kind of do body work and assemble parts. But so from that standpoint, it just it worked itself out, kind of weeded itself out. And ironically, shortly after I did all that, I needed to hire some new guys, and there just happened to be some guys in Wichita that had gone to WTech or knew the trade, and we started to kind of form a young group, and that core group stayed together for 13, 14 years before I started losing them to start their own shops. So, that young group was pretty good.
So you got yourself a shop, and you got yourself some employees and stuff, and you an existing shop, and there's a little bit of cash flow, obviously, because there's restoration and stuff. But how do you just change the name and then start building your first custom car? I mean, what customer did you get first, and how did you get them?
Me again. It was one of those things where, so when I knew I was going to switch from being known as a restoration shop, and by all means, they weren't known as a restoration. I mean, none of you guys have heard of RK Restoration. They were a local shop.
Right.
They could do some decent work, but they were just a local shop. Anyways, my whole thing was, we need a calling card. We need something that people can say, oh, that's who those guys are. And I wasn't necessarily thinking at a national scale. I'm just, hey, I need something that I can take to some local shows and show off. This is what it means to be Devlin Rod and Customs. And so when I was living in Denver, I had bought a 64 Cadillac, and it was a 4-door, and it was just something that I bought so I could drive to work and piddle around on. And when I was up at WTech, I'd already bagged it and did some other things with it. And so when I said, this is what we're going to do, it's cheap, I already own it, so let's build this car. And I said, we need something that's going to make it stand out, so let's paint it loud, so it's kind of a lime candy green with a pearl white roof. And being a 4-door, that's not something that everybody wants to do, but those are a pillarless design, so they look really nice as a 4-door. I want to do something unique with the motor and keep the 429, and Moon Eyes had their projection system. I don't know if you guys remember that. Well, that piece of shit went on there, and that thing never ran right. It was cool. It looked cool because it had 6 2s on it of those things, but man, they never worked.
I don't know why that wouldn't work. It's
super easy.
Well, and it was the wrong intake for it too. I mean, it was a wide open intake. It should have never been on there, but anyways, you live and you learn. So that was our calling card.
So what's your first customer you got off of that build?
So after that, we had already had some existing customers, so it was finishing some cars that were still there from RK Restorations, and then it was local people in the town in Wichita that really had a desire to have some cars built. I had a friend of the family that I'd known that I hadn't seen in I don't know how long, who reached out to me and said, hey, I heard you opened a shop, and I want you to go look at this car for me because I'd like to have you work on it. Okay, great, outstanding. And so it was a sedan delivery, and it was a 39 sedan delivery with a 40 grill went and looked at it and said, it looks a little rough, but I think we can start with it. And we had him, he went out and bought it. And so that was really our first major undertaking, was that sedan delivery. And, being from Kansas, you're either a K-State fan or a Jayhawk fan or a Shocker. And he was a Jayhawk fan. So we had to paint this Jayhawk on the side of the thing. That really pissed me off, being a Wildcat guy. But anyway, it was a cool truck. Cool truck.
Isn't it interesting when you're in your early years, the garages and the places you find yourself in when you're trying to land a job, and at that point, so you're chasing down anything. I mean, I can remember countless places, like the random guy who said, "I've got an old car. I'd like you to come take a look at it." It's like
Hours.
hour drive. It's and it's like a Bricklin or like an old kit car or something.
Something, but like you said, it's jobs. I've done it.
Right.
I've done it at shows before. Been at car shows, and the guy's like, "Hey, I've got a car." I'm like, I mean, I could peel away. I mean, it's only 45 minutes down the road. You just hop in the car with the stranger that you've never met, and you're going down the road looking at a car. You do what you got to do.
Yeah, 100%. I used to go anywhere. I even made deals where I had an enclosed trailer, and guys say, "Hey, I need you to go haul this for me." Anything to make a buck, right? You mentioned cash flow earlier. Man, when you're first starting out, I think we were billing our clients every week or every 2 weeks. I mean, you just got to have that cash flow. You're not surviving without it. That's a big lesson to learn.
We were getting this stuff. Guys that wander in the door and need something welded. It's
Bring it in here.
A sewer pipe or something. The craziest shit. An old an old intake manifold that an aluminum intake that's just soaked with oil. It's just blowing up on you. But
you think on the customer side? I've always we talked about this before on like build customers, right? If they can smell out a shop of like, I can get this dude to do a really good job for not much money. Do you think like your standard fab, like a guy that's got a broken lawnmower that needs it like welded up, seam welded up, like sees a brand new hot rod shop, and like, I guarantee you they'll weld this up for $20?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's more of a desperation thing.
It seems like those, but you don't see that desperation stuff really that much anymore.
No, on their end, that this is somebody who can weld and is close.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like at my age now and knowing what I know, I'd love to encounter that, like not to like misuse it or take advantage of it, but it'd be neat to stumble in somewhere.
That's a cool ass shop.
And find a kid that's got so much talent that's just getting started, and it'd be cool to see. It really would.
Yeah. And then you tell them, like,
they'd be like, get a fucking job, dude. Get a goddamn job. Put the welder away. No, I'm just kidding. But,
as you're building and growing your business, do you have a set kind of plan in mind, or is it just making it happen, solving the next problem to keep moving? And
it may be a little bit of both. I mean, in the end, you kind of, any plan that you make, you seem to kind of throw it in the trash and then move to the next thing, because just when you think you've got something figured out, you don't, especially in this industry. I tell people all the time, this is probably the hardest industry that I can think of to make money in. There's just no question about it. It is a tough one. I mean, you tell me back in the day, I mean, how many times did you try and bid something? Try and sit down and work line by line and be able to sit down with the customer and say, this is how much it's going to cost. I mean, I don't know how many jobs we lost our ass on trying to make sure that we could get that, and thinking that that's what, maybe that's what it needed at the time. Maybe we needed to be able to tell them this is exactly what it's going to cost, because we're so new, and what kind of faith are they going to have in us? I wouldn't bid anything today. I try not to tell them anything. Obviously everybody wants to know a number, but you give them an idea I think it's going to be in this range. But
remember those days too when you're doing it line by line and you get through the thing and you struggle over it and you're like, I got to put some padding, because there's going to be some like mistakes. There's going to be something I forgot or something like this. So you put a little padding on it, and then it's like, oh, I'll send that in the morning. You get in the morning, you're like, oh, I gotta just, I think he can go for this. Put a little bit of that. And then it's fucking at the end of it, like that's all gone, and you still lose money. And how many times you're like, well, I'm doubling the fucking padding, the safety net at the end of that, and it just keeps going on until you get to the point of like it just
makes you wonder about like construction, for example, stuff that they actually bid. Like it's got to be bid with. I mean, they're taking you to the fucking cleaners, because they're like a remodel, right? And they don't know if they tear down that wall, like what's behind the wall, because that's what we say. It's like, we don't know if you open up that quarter panel, you know, you take that paint off, like there could be just mesh Bondo, there could be fucking newspaper, there could be mice in there. We don't know. For those guys to come out on top, I almost think it's unfair, right? Like it's more fair. It's like a cost plus, like a guy building. You got to trust a guy, you know.
Yep.
But to dive into a project and do it at time and materials, you've got to find the right builder, and you got to trust him, because it's advantageous to the builder and the customer, because they're getting the right price, and you're, you know, hopefully making a small profit as you get through it. I mean, granted, that's going to slowly diminish or rapidly diminish as you start eating more and more stuff or come up with crazy ideas. But it's just a wild business.
Feel like in a service, any type of service, if the person providing the service knows full well he's going to get paid for every moment of his time that he's putting in, you're always going to get a better job by that said provider, no matter what it is, you know?
Yeah, because if you've got a $10,000 budget and you're $9,000 into it and know you've got $5,000 left, you're going to cut a shit ton of corners half-assed to get it done, so you're not losing.
If I go in and get a tattoo and the guy's like, I mean, it's $100 to do whatever, and then halfway through it, whatever, I'm like, well, can you add a little of this? And can you add a little of this? Well, you can do this, right? Can you add a little of this? I mean, he's already committed to a thing. It's kind of like, fuck it, yeah, whatever. It's going to be a shitty-ass tattoo.
At $100.
That's what happened.
Most of all these are, done that exact way. I got a guy commit to a price.
You should have paid more for that shit. I'd have given him $200.
When it came out of my mouth, I knew where it was going, and I couldn't walk it back. I was like, this is a bad place to take this. But like you said, now you couldn't bid a job now, but you had. We've talked about this 100 times. I'm sure listeners are probably like, yeah, we get it, you know, but all of that shit is part of paying the dues, learning, getting your name out there. I mean, it just like you spend money on advertising, you know, or doing anything like that for any other normal type of business, that you're doing the same thing. You're donating time and labor to get your business card to look a little better as advertising to get out there, right? Until you don't have to, you have to donate a little less, until you don't have to bid, until a guy comes in there and be like, I've seen your work. What's your hourly rate? We're entering into a long-term relationship. We jive, we gel. Let's build something fucking cool. And that's what everybody's striving to get to.
Yeah, 100%. And part of me feels like I'm still looking for some of that. I mean, in the end, it is that we've given away more of our time, more of our efforts, more of our creativity. And I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the shop in general, you know, all the team, you know, and it's my responsibility to try and make that as minimal as possible. But I still feel like, you know, you sit down, you know, I sit down and do the invoicing, and I sit down and do that, and I look at it, I'm like, man, can we really charge for that? I mean, it's tough, you know, it really is. You still go through that, but we struggled through that from day one. But it's good, you know, it's good now. You're right. You get having a customer that comes in and understands, and part of that was building through that, like with Jeff with his Roadster. I mean, that's not the first project we did with Jeff, and it's not the last, thank God. I thought it might be, but you know, it's one of those where it was a slow build. You know, it's like, okay, I got this, do a little bit on that, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. To the next thing you know, he's our top guy, and we pretty much always got something of his in the shop. And having a guy like that, I mean, I've heard you guys talk about it, and I've heard other shops talk about it. I mean, when you get one of those, it's impressive. That the things that they'll allow you to do, and how they allow you to grow, and how they allow your team to grow. You know, my team that worked on his Roadster, I mean, where we started and where we ended up at the end, I mean, the things that we learned on that project were invaluable. You know, but it took us a long time to get to that point. You know, we had some good cars prior to his. You know, we were that same guy that we did the sedan delivery 2 years later. We did a 55 Ford for him that was a Custom Rod of the Year finalist, and I thought, shit, here's where it's going to take off. And you know, at the time, my mistake was not being cognizant of how important it was for me to take that car around to shows. He was taking it around, and it wasn't like he wasn't broadcasting who we were and who did the work, but man, that was one of those things where at the time I should have been the one doing that. I should have been dedicated to, okay, I got to go put 20,000 miles on the rig and go do this. And, you know, I made a conscious decision a long time ago that family and being around on the weekends was important. our industry is not built on that, man. Our industry is built on you go to the shows on the weekend. If you want to pimp who you are, you better be there on the weekends. And that's hard, man. That's hard to have a family. It's hard to start off. I mean, that's all tough.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was listening to you talk about, get to a point where you donate less and stuff like that. It's funny. We've got friends in the industry and, I've heard other people, even people on this podcast talked about whatever. Like I finally got to the point, I'm not donating. I'm charging for I've got great customers. I charge for every moment of the day that I'm working on that car and stuff. That's great, and that's true. That's where we've gotten to the point. But at the same time, 34, any of our great customers, you charge for every single hour that you worked on that vehicle and you're doing the best job you possibly can. You're still donating because at night, you're agonizing over it. You're thinking about it. You're trying to create. You're trying to do that. And you're not charging for that time. And then every one of those guys that works for you that's working on that vehicle is doing the same thing. They're agonizing over it. They're thinking about it. And they're trying to create, oh, crap, I got to build this in the next morning. How am I going to do this? How am I going to think about that? And again, if that's just part of the artisan, the craftsmanship, the part of that, no matter if you charge for every single hour and every single part, even with markup and stuff like that, the customer's still getting a good deal if the guy is that passionate about what he's building for you, Because you're not charging for your sleepless nights.
Right, 100%.
Name a guy out there that's successful that's built some badass shit that sleeps well at night. I mean, who goes to sleep and just wakes up in the morning like, that was great. I'm ready to get after it. You're thinking. Even you're dreaming about it all night long.
Generally nightmares. The dreams, Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Yeah, you live it. It's the only way to do it. Do it right. Absolutely.
You got to be all in, fully committed. Birthdays, holidays, don't matter. You're building a business. You're building your calling card.
And that's, and I think that goes with any service. Like you said, on construction, if you get that right guy that's really wanting to make something special, right? You're hoping that he's doing the same thing, right? It's very difficult for us in coming from our backgrounds and doing what we've done for so long. When you do hire somebody to do work, you're hoping that they've got like that same mentality. Like I want you to get like super passionate about this now. Like I want you to dream about it at night, like I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put a wall up and move a door. Like how crazy are you gonna get?
Are you gonna pay me for all night?
Could you like flush fit that and like make it cool?
Right. That's an unusual thing. I think you don't see it a lot outside of our industry, really. I mean, you'd like to see it. I mean, I'd love to have that, but you just don't run into that. I mean,
you think the guy that made the AC unit over there is up all night figuring out a way to make a cool transition vent and machine?
No, I mean, I can tell you.
But the dude that made this table is
right.
Yeah,
they're out there. It's just different. The guy at Chipotle is not.
You don't think so?
He's not crafting the
ultimate
ultimate
he can't
burrito.
figure out steak or chicken after the 4 times I've told him. All right, we've gone over that.
Is that his fault? I mean, that might be his limitation. Like he's operating at max capacity.
He doesn't go home thinking about how badass he's going to make the burrito tomorrow. All right, sorry.
Okay.
Nothing against the profession. He's just I wouldn't be thinking about how good I could make the burrito the next day.
I would. I'd be making the best fucking bread. I'd be lining the steak up like a grid. Be like Tetris on there. This is the way it is. I'm just passionate about what I do. And that's what's different about you and me.
My wife's the same way. I hope she's just as passionate and thinking at night about how good of a dinner she's going to make me the next day.
Oh, good grief.
So you start getting those cars out there. You build your first one. You got customers. You get stuff. What's the time where we always ask this? Where's the I think I've made it? Right? What's the time that you either tell your wife or you're driving home, you pinch yourself, you get that big old smile on your face. Maybe it's crank the REO Speedwagon up a little bit on the radio that you're like, I think I'm there. All this hard work is starting to pay off. It hasn't paid off, but it's starting to pay off.
Going back to that 55, I thought it was there because once again, we're hitting Custom Rod of the Year. It had multiple awards at its first Good Guys show. I'm like, okay, I'm just told that was one of the first times that had happened. I'm like, hey, this is 07. It's pretty early on. This is just going to keep rolling from there. And no, it just didn't. And like I said, it was probably on me, but it just didn't. It was okay, back to building some cars.
Did you try depositing any of those trophies at the bank? Like bring them in and see if they can do anything with them.
don't work.
I
I
tried.
never even got to see any of those trophies. I think they're still over at my customer's place, man.
I tried.
I don't think we have any.
I tried melting down a few of those Good Guys Gold Awards, but they're not fucking gold. They're aluminum. It's not worth shit. Nothing. It's not even good aluminum. I don't even think it's 6061.
Sorry to derail that one, Gary.
No, it's okay. That's okay. But no, I think after that, we built several nice cars. Nothing was, they're all nice cars. It's funny going back and looking at it, it's kind of crazy. The Starboard name is a big name in Wichita. And man, we used to bust our ass to get cars done for the January Darrell Starboard show. That was a big thing for us in Wichita. And looking back on it, that's great, but we should have been busting our ass for other shows like a Good Guys event that would have gotten us some more recognition. But having said that, that's what we did. But then, we just stayed nice and steady. Things improved, and then 08 hits and everything falls to shit. At that time, we kind of thought we were going to be building a new building. And I think, once we did finally do that, we got out of our old facility and built a new building. That's when I felt like, okay, this is pretty cool. This is good. We've got a new facility. We got some new equipment. We got space. We can keep things clean. Having a clean room to do things. All we had before was a tiny showroom that we would act as our clean room. And, it doesn't matter what you do. When you've got people doing body work, just a sliding glass door behind there, you can't keep anything clean. So things like that, that's when I felt like, okay, we're big time, and not big time like you guys, but this is it. This is feeling pretty good. We've got something that when somebody walks through a door, like I used to have a plastic chair in my office that somebody would come and sit down as we're talking about builds. I mean, you try and sell a $250,000 job to somebody sitting in a plastic chair, it's tough. You got to sell it off your work. And that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to sell it 100% off of the work that we were doing, not the way our facility looked. But once we got that facility, I'm like, okay, now this is our Taj Mahal that we can say, not that this is what you're paying for, but this is how we're going to treat your car. This is how we go about our business.
Right.
And that was the time that I felt like we were there.
Are you sure that you weren't just feeling good in 08 because you were keeping up with all your former coworkers in the real estate business and you were like, I'm fucking doing way better than they are?
Zero,
At that time,
zero,
yeah, at
zero,
that time.
zero. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
tough.
that was a rough time.
Tough time. I mean, we're interesting that you brought that up. I mean, we were kind of on the same trajectory in was it 08? We moved into this building. Yep. 08, we closed on in 08, started remodeling it, moved into it in late 08, early 09.
Plenty of contractors around.
Yes.
Same thing. I mean, it's like everything is just cranking. I mean, we're flying high. We had put the work in. Jobs are flowing. I mean, we were jam-packed. We're pushing so much. We're in a tiny, like 7,000 square foot building at the time, and we're overflowing. We're pushing all the cars out at, first thing in the morning just to have enough room to work, pushing them all back in, chassis piling up, move into here. Things are fucking awesome. Beautiful facility. Here's the assembly room. Here's the chassis shop. And
here's 08.
Yeah, and here's 08, and it's like it was a slower roll. I feel like the rug wasn't yanked out from underneath the hot rod shop, community, but it was definitely they kind of like slid it out, and it was tough. I mean, that was a tough time for sure. But it was
You always have the guys in those times that have got some wherewithal to be able to see through those storms. But even in those times, man, they're starting to pull back, and we're not anything anybody needs, right? We're in an industry that nobody needs. It's something that somebody wants. So we're one of the first things to go, right?
If you want to be fucking cool, you need it.
That's
Guarantee it.
Remember that.
If you want to be a dork.
Remember that. If the economy, the economy's questionable these days. If it starts fading, if you
Can't
want
put a price on cool.
right, if you want to be a fucking dork, as Josh says, pull back. Don't spend the money. Want to be one of the cool guys?
Yeah.
Let it roll.
Looking back now from where you're at, would you change anything that you did to get here, or do you think the struggle and learning along the way is worth where you're at now?
No, I definitely think it's worth it. There's some small decisions decisions that I would certainly change. I wasted some money at the early times of advertising that I shouldn't have done. This little lessons like that was just, there's no return for it, so little things like that I might change, but in the end, those are the decisions I made, and we're still in pretty good position. So it worked out okay. But in the end, yeah, it might have been fun to see some of those cars travel a little bit more and see how they might have done. But in the end, that's the decision I made. So we're here. But yeah, it's okay.
So how'd the 34 come around? How'd that customer find you? What's the first conversation? I want to know where I want to know from inception. So
Jeff Bro was a customer of ours early on. He was one of those he was the guy that stayed with us. The first project I think we did for Jeff was a 34 Pontiac. And that was it was a car that he had bought and needed to be finished. So that was my first working relationship with Jeff. But ironically, he was a customer of the restoration shop that I bought. They had built a Jeepster for Jeff. So Jeff was already acquainted with the shop, but then he's like, well, man, I like these hot rods too. So let's do something. And he brought the 34 Pontiac to us. And so we finished that car for him, and then moved to the next one and the next one until here we are. Oh, when would that have been? 2012, is that right? Somewhere in that neighborhood. Jeff comes to us and says, and Jeff's a Chevy guy, so he's a GM guy first and foremost, but he's a Chevy guy, and he wasn't going to build anything but a Chevy. But he said, let's build a badass car. As I want to go all out. I want to do this thing right. And he said, I want to build a 34 Chevy. And at the time when he first brought it up, he wanted to go for the Riddler. And one of my first comments to him was, well, one, you know how rare a 34 Chevrolet is. And internally I'm thinking, that's not near as easy to build as a 34 Ford, right? Ford's pretty easy to get accomplished, but he wanted to do a Chevrolet, and it had to be all Chevrolet power. There couldn't be anything that wasn't. It was, well, how do we start this? Because honestly, most of what we'd done through to that point was, sitting down with a client and just working through what they wanted, building what they wanted, and that was the end of the job. We'd done some renderings, and I said, look, I've got a list here that I want you to go about and look at, because one of the things that is important is you need to pick a designer. I said, we can go through and build you a car and we can come up with some good ideas, but in the end, we need to work through these ideas on paper before we ever do anything for you out in the shop. So it's going to save us all money and save us time and headache. So I said, you need to work through these guys and look at them. And I said, each one of them are going to have a different style, and you're going to feel something different when you look at it. Some of them are going to be a little more modern, a little more traditional, and you need to look through these and tell me what you think. And he landed on Eric Black. And Eric was...
I've heard the name. I don't know.
He's been around a few times. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So, guy that just like draws car pictures.
He's got an Etch-a-Sketch.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's.
He wears a funny hat. That guy.
Oh. Yes.
He uses mostly AI though. I think that's what's great. Yeah. He's just a really good description writer.
Yeah. Where is he from?
Oregon.
And what is he?
He's fucking badass. He's from Wyoming. He's a cowboy. You better watch your mouth, motherfucker.
that is Josh coming corrected right there. Right?
He's fucking badass.
All right, there we go. There it is. Yes, yeah. Eric is a fucking badass. Yeah.
Come on. Eric knows what's going on. There's no doubt. But it was interesting to see Jeff land on it, because the discussions that Jeff and I had before landing on Eric, he threw out some ideas about stance and wheels and tires, and he was at the time, it was pretty popular to do a big inch wheel even on those cars, and that was kind of where he was at. And Eric, that's not Eric's style. But it's kind of interesting when you mix those two ideas. But in the end, he wanted to go with Eric, and without Eric's jumping off point, honestly, there's two pivotal things besides Jeff having the idea to build a Chevy. it's Eric and you guys that really set the bar of this is where this project is going to go. Because without them, like, I wanted to do the car with fenders. I wanted the thing to be a full fendered car. You look at what is it Ironworks is doing with that 35. Sure. Who that is? I mean, that's a badass car. And it's full fendered. And I thought that's kind of the idea that I had for his car, but it's adamant. It's got to be a fenderless car. Well, he also wanted it independent suspension, front and rear. I don't know if you guys remember that when we were first talking about your chassis, he wanted independent rear suspension. And that's why I wanted full fenders. Like, I can cover that shit up. Hard to make that look nice, right?
Yep.
So, going through that, we went through some design cues with Eric, and we got to a point where I don't know how many, I think he had done 8 or 10 renderings for us, including getting to kind of the rear end. And Jeff wanted this center dump exhaust because he was big into Corvettes. And we got to a point where Eric sent us one last rendering. And he said, okay, I'm done with the project. I think it's taking a little too modern of a taste for me. And his last rendering had the wheels that are on the car, and it was more traditional. And we stopped and said, well, that's the car. I mean, if he hadn't have done that either, I mean, that was terribly important. That car would have been a big inch, modern looking. It wouldn't have worked. I mean, it wouldn't have done what it's done. So without Eric, that was terribly important. I mean, we stopped at that moment. Even the color of the car, when Eric was giving us renderings, the first colored rendering he gave us was dark blue. We all stopped and said, well, that's the color. We don't need to do anything else. I mean, he just landed on every little cue that we think we wanted, or that Jeff wanted and loved. So it just worked. And then it was, okay, what's next? We've got a rendering. Well, we need a base, Jeff. We need something. We need a platform to build on. And that's when we got a hold of you guys and said, look, here's what we're talking about doing. Take a look at this and let us know what you think. Well, we went through before we landed on the chassis, we were looking at the control arms. The front control arms were really important because they were a huge design cue that everybody was going to see walking up to that car. Yep. And we went through several designs with you guys trying to figure out what might look right. We went through some ideas of, hey, you guys are in Wichita, aircraft's big, it kind of has an aircraft look. We went through a traditional, does this look like a straight axle that's been split? I mean, we went through a lot of different things trying to find that. And then you guys came up with this kind of organic shape. And once we saw it, it's like, okay, I mean, we couldn't sit there and tell you this is exactly what we want, but we knew it when we saw it. Yep. That was the interesting thing about this car. And probably every step of the way, there were things that whether Jeff or myself or somebody from our team would say, this is what it needs to be. And we may not have exactly what that is, but as soon as we saw it, man, we knew that was it. And with you guys, that was it.
Yeah, that's a tough car. I mean, that's a very difficult car to dive into and just have the vision. I mean, you obviously fucking nailed it. I mean, the car is absolutely gorgeous, but I think to clean sheet that's a tough one to dive into and be like, have the vision. If this
have a mind's eye picture,
right? Of this is where I'm going with it. So I can totally understand how that organic process happened with that car, because 32 Ford, 33 Ford, 34 Ford. Number one, there's a lot of examples to go off of, so you've got visuals of things. Number two, the lines just right from the factory are a little bit better, right? That's a tough car. When it came into our shop to scan, it's not a good looking car. Just what you started with, right? It has nothing good about it really. And to take it from there and to do what you did, I mean, that's wildly impressive. But yeah, the car seems to have kind of built itself almost.
Well, and it did. And I credit that to the team that was involved in it. I mean, you guys will, if you talk to me on a regular basis, you'll hear me talking about the guys at the shop and my team. I'm not the one that's responsible for making my cars look good. That's those guys, man. Those are the guys that make those cars what they are and always have been from day one. So I'll stand behind them 100%. As I'm not the builder. This is my shop, but those guys are the builders. But in the end, you're right. I mean, it was, usually I try and in the cars in the past, I'm picking the finishes and I'm helping with the design ideas and this one was Jeff always brought our group together and said, okay, we've gone this far. Here's the next steps. But guys, I want to hear from each and every one of you that are on the team. What do you like? What do you don't like? What are we doing next? What do you think you want to do personally? I mean, there were things that I had made up my mind. This is what it needs to be. And we had guys with different ideas on the team in Devlin Rod and Customs that said, no, I think this is a better idea. And to have, to have the balls to be able to step up and say in front of a customer and in front of me, say, no, this is a better idea. That was the right idea. They were right.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things on that car that I wanted that probably would have ruined that car. Like one of the things was the body line was going to be a flat finish like it is up underneath the body. And that would have ruined the car. It looks so much more elegant with a solid finish like it is. But that came from our team. So those guys deserve 100% of that credit. But you're right. It is cool to have a customer that comes in and has been involved in enough builds, but can sit there and say, guys, tell me what your thoughts are, because you guys sit around this stuff and think about this shit all day long. Whereas, okay, as Jeff, our client, he's busy working all day long. He's busy making money, doing his thing. And when he has 30 minutes or an hour to think about it, he's not thinking about it the same way that all of us are that are spending 24/7 around it.
Sure.
And so to get their take on it, it was huge. And so, but it was hard for me to sit there and just say, Tim, shut up, because there's some cool ideas coming out of your shop right now. Just be quiet. But it's neat.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to discuss, because we realized that in the shop here, like the F100 we're doing, John's F100. That's kind of a cool one. That's very much in line with, like, not, certainly not to the level of what you've created, but it's a pretty high end truck, and it's a truck that's been done so many times, and they're not, they weren't born with, they don't have great genetics, right? It's a fucking
that's a great way.
It's a brutal looking
He's
truck
gonna follow it up and drive it home.
to begin with, but as you're moving through something, we're radically modifying it. And, I'm out there looking at it every single day. And there's been countless things where Josh has walked up and just been like staring at it. I'm like, what the fuck are you looking at? And I'd be like, is that serious that you're going to leave that like that? That's how you're going to do that little bed extension? And I'm like, well,
you do a great impression. I thought you were going to put the Southern
I'm
in
like,
it.
well, yeah, because it's like,
Yeah.
it's a weird transition. And then, like, part of you wants to be like a little defensive at the moment, but then you realize, you're like, well, yeah, I mean, we are kind of struggling with that. And like it evolved. He contributed a good idea. Phil walked up and he's looking at it one day and he's like, those door handles, is that backwards? Or is that the way you're putting those on there? We designed them and 3D printed them. I'm like, well, no, that's the way it goes, Phil. And then I'm looking at him like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of does look like
more
fucking
sweepy going.
Yeah, I'm like,
way.
it does kind of look backwards, and we 3D printed it. We put it on magnets just to look at it, and you're like, spin it around, and you're like, yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of does look better. So, yeah, you definitely have to be open minded to number one, accept the input, but also reject the fucking horrible ideas. I mean, there's plenty of people that come in that bring nothing to the table, but there's the cooperative design process is pretty cool, because ultimately you don't want everybody. If you build something that everybody likes, then it's
designed by community,
right? It's safe, So
Be a Camry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. But no, I really think it's interesting, and it gives me a lot of respect for your customer, the fact that he appreciates that collaborative process and took the time to be like, hey, I want to hear this stuff. And I'm sure there was times that he was like, glad you spoke up and spoke your mind. That's a stupid idea. Next, we're going to go to the, and
100%.
And then, but everybody's like, all right, yeah, cool. I get it. And it's a safe space, but it's also a safe space both ways. If you feel safe to give your idea, I have to feel safe to be able to tell you it's bad.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And then that's how, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. And now I know why you're saying that. And then the other guy's like, now that I just listened to both of y'all talk, you're both idiots. And this right here would work. And then both of those guys looking, you're like, oh yeah,
shit,
that's a good one.
And then when it's all said and done, you're like, so what I was thinking here, like we're
grandstand it.
Oh, that's really cool.
But it is neat, and you're right. I mean, but it went back and forth with him, and that was really cool. But I got to give my guys credit for even standing up to me at times. I think there's some things where, Tim has this idea and Tim walks away and they get something else, and some of those are some damn good ideas. So I guess if there's any advice to any other shop owners listening out there, man, your guys have got some great advice. Listen to them. They're doing this thing just like you are. So listen to them.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely don't want to stifle creativity. You've got to encourage it, but it's got to be a two-way street.
You got to have, everybody has to have thick skin.
Yeah.
Manager, shop owner, customer, guy working on it. You got to have thick skin. You've got to get past the dating stage, right? Get past the fact that you're at the
farting stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to be like,
get to the point where we're watching Netflix and you don't have to like be uncomfortable all night. You can let one rip and she's not going to leave you, right? That's the stage that I want you to get.
100%.
But if a customer's like, hey, I was thinking about, doing it this color, whatever, be past the dating stage and be like, no, absolutely not. That would not going to look good. And the customer's got to be comfortable. Be like, all right, no problem.
You're right.
And then the employee's got to be the same way. Yes. But hey, I was thinking about putting these wheels on. And then you could look at it and be like, that's a really good idea. But if it's not a good idea, don't tell them it's a good idea. Look at them and be like these? No, I don't think so. Why would you think that? Have you ever seen a cool car with those wheels on it? No, you haven't. That's stupid. Don't ever bring that up again. And everybody's got to have thick enough skin to just get through it. It's not about who brought the idea.
Right.
It's about the creation at the end and making the customer happy.
Well, and that's tough because you are trying to make the customer happy. I've always told anybody that comes through my shop that in the end, this is their build. If they're the customer, this is their build, and we're trying to make them happy, but they need to also rely on us as the quote unquote experts to help them through that. We connect the dots from A to Z for you, but in the end, I don't want them walking out there thinking that what they have to offer isn't valued, because it certainly is. But I also don't want them driving out of there with a car with a dragon painted on the fucking hood. That's not what we're fucking all about. It's got to be
what kind of dragon we talking about?
All right, two dragons.
Oh boy. Yeah. So
what about a lobster?
I heard about the lobster.
The lobster's a special deal because that was for a business, right? That was a promotional item. But the running was. Well, it was a trade show exhibit, okay? So I get it. I understand it. The running stallions that were running through real fire on the side of on the louvered hood sides of a 32 Ford, that was a tough one because it's not he's not in the stallion sales business that it's going to a stallion show.
Fire stallions.
Okay? Right.
He's not a fireman, right?
That's a genuinely bad idea that today, where we stand,
You'd have told him.
Well, I'd have been more comfortable to be like,
no.
Mm-mm.
So if somebody comes to you with a badass van and they want stallions on fire,
different.
Completely different.
Completely
because
different.
that's appropriate. Yeah, as
you
long
can
as
do canvas. The canvas matters as much as the art you're putting on it.
If it's got a
you can do dragons, stallions.
All right, fair.
What do they call it? A minotaur?
Yeah, minotaur. That's
With
Patrick's Swayzar.
With a sword on the side. That's so the back half's a stallion and the front half there's some fire rolling on. There's a sword.
Who would be on the front?
That's a Swayzar. It's a Patrick Swayze up top. Horse in the
then you've got something. Yeah, right. 100%. It lives. That's the creative process we're talking about here. Right? That's when you embrace and you're like, yes.
You're inspired by your idea.
What about a mini horse on the bottom and a Zac Efron on the top? Think about what that would look like.
Maybe. Depends. I don't know. I'd have to see.
That's more like a spare tire spot.
Yeah. Matching airbrush T-shirt.
Well, I think we got through a lot of therapy there.
Yeah, we did.
With the customers and the shop owners and the employees.
All the we're talking about this 34 Chevy. Obviously, the car is wildly impactful. It's that's one of those cars that will be remembered forever. What does that do for a shop like yours? I mean, is it immediate success? What happens after that car debuts? What do things look like for Devlin Rod and
he's
Custom?
on the Oil and Whiskey podcast, so pretty big deal.
So pretty good. or it didn't go that well. Depending on
That's how it sounds here. But then he's telling his friends, he's like, "Yeah, I mean, yeah, I ended up on some.
Thought I built something cool, but I had to do this dumbass podcast with these guys.
But in all seriousness,
I don't know if it's better for me or worse for you guys.
what does
No,
that,
I did
what does
that.
that
It
look
was.
like?
I tell you, it's. So when the thing was announced, like we all felt pretty good about things when we were at the show, but we were also against a car built by Brizio. Like, you know, everybody was telling us that, look, man, you're going to California, you're a little shop from Kansas, and you're going to go compete against the big boys, and man, good luck.
That's their playground.
You know, we knew that Brizio had coming, and it's like, well, do we be discouraged? And Jeff's like, no, we go put it under their fucking noses and see what happens. We built a good car, let's go. And he's right. We built a good car, let's go. And once we got there, we were feeling better after we saw the cars, and it's like, well, there's a chance. Yeah. That was it, but there's a chance. But once it was announced, fuck, you get that trophy set in front of the car, and there's a million photographers taking your picture. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, I've never been to a movie premiere, but that's what it fucking felt like. You got paparazzi from every magazine. Well, there's not many magazines left, but from wherever they're coming from, they're taking pictures of you. And all of our guys are just like, holy shit, who do we even smile at? It's like, guys, just soak it up and enjoy it. And then from there, it's like, okay, you drive all the way back to Kansas. I've heard you guys make the joke, okay, once you do something like that, then what? It's just back to normal, right? Yeah. You get back to the shop and all the shit is still there. Your mess that you left, oh, by the way, after thrashing on that car.
Still got to take the trash out.
The pizza's still there.
Yeah, 100%. So, but then it was, okay, now what's our next move with the car? It's like, okay, we've got something. We need to do something with it. You know, if you went and you didn't win the award, you know, I don't know what our plan would have been, but it automatically it became, okay, what's the next show that we ought to do? And the decision was made that we kind of hold off until we get to the Good Guys show, and that Street Rod of the Year was the most appropriate event to take it to next. And so from then on, it was, let's go put miles on the truck and trailer. And that's what we did the rest of the year. And honestly, it wasn't just the rest of the year. That hadn't stopped until, hell, just recently, it seems like. And that's an event of amongst itself. When you're putting, 20,000+ miles on your rig, going from here to, God, we went to Frankenmuth, we went to Louisville, we went back to California 3 times. I mean, you're just all over the place, and everybody wants to see the car, and that's cool. It's great, man. It was fantastic. What does that do for your shop? There's certainly an easy, oh, you guys are the ones that built the Roadster. That's an easy recognition, because I think prior to that, there's a couple of cars that people nationally might be able to say, oh, I remember your 33, or I remember this car.
Yeah.
But outside of that, until you win something like the Amber, there's not a lot of huge recognition outside of your town. But once that happened, yeah, I know you guys, and even my crew, they would take cars out, they would take the Jeff's car out, and they would get recognized, and that was awesome for them. They had a good time doing that. But yeah, it was an immediate impact.
Fucking awesome car. We were there. Remember seeing it.
It's
drooling all over it.
Yeah, that was one of the. You always know, right? We showed up to the
99% of the time,
You do.
When we enter a car, you don't know.
Yeah, sometimes you're surprised.
But it was just such a clear winner, and it's been so neat to see, because we had a part in it, which is super cool, and I've got a relationship with you, and it's interesting that I've seen you at so many shows, but I've only talked to you at a handful because you're so damn busy. Like, you're always covered up. You and Jeff, there's always so much action around that car, and it rightfully so. I mean,
dude, you're gonna and after this, there's probably at least 3 other people. Well, 2 of them in Australia and 1's in Canada. So nothing's gonna change, but you'll have 3 followers on Instagram. I guarantee it.
We're gonna boost that up, whatever it is now. At +3.
Well, we've already got the Australian followers, because that car's a Holden bodied car. So we've already got those guys.
Yeah, those dudes. Yeah. Hey, cheers to the Aussies.
Wasn't it right-hand drive when it came in?
I knew it was there was something Australian about it.
It wasn't, but we had all of the pieces. We had all the pieces to turn it right-hand drive.
Okay, yeah, I remember something being right-hand drive or.
Yeah, it kept coming up in conversation that
Mike's
it was
truck's right-hand
Australia.
drive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unrelated.
Chris is also.
Yes.
Oh, you're talking about right-hand drive stuff. It's related.
It was that.
Nothing could be more related.
So after all the success with it, right? The car is wildly well received. Is your goal to build more cars like that? Or having done that, are you using that? Is that a great advertisement, a great marketing piece for your company? And now you're like, I'm gonna dive into these 80s trucks because
80s Suburban.
this is where it's at. Or what were the projects that followed the success of that car? Did the next guy come in and it's like, I'm chasing the AMBR. I saw what you did there. Let's fucking build this. We're gonna win. We're going for the Riddler. We're going for the AMBR. We're going for something. What does that look like?
So the guy that we had a guy come in with a Model A and wanted to go after it. He didn't want to go after the Riddler, but he wanted to participate. And that car's no longer in our shop. It wasn't because we kicked it out. It was because he decided that wasn't the right direction for him. I think he didn't realize maybe what going after that really means. And regardless of what you think of what's going on with the Riddler today, it still means something. There's still a lot of effort put into it. But in the end, it wasn't, man, I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't that. It wasn't like our phone's ringing off the hook. Man, you built the fucking Amber and let's come do business with you guys. It just wasn't that. We had a steady stream of customers that needed our attention after we finished that. I'd been putting them off and telling them, I'll get to you. You're on my list. And it was go back to that, go back to grinding again. That's honestly what it is getting those customers that you've made happy the previous 15 years, go back and make them happy again and take care of them. We had and we still have it. And we got a 68 Mustang Fastback that we're finishing up and it should be done this spring. And it's just things like that, it's nothing, we're doing another car for Jeff. There wasn't anything that we're like, hey, here's another Amber. And I don't know that I want to go do another Amber. It's not anything disparaging about the Amber. That was as amazing as it can ever be. But the toll that it takes on an individual, a family, a shop, man, and we've done it before. We've gone through moments where, man, you're spending 3-4 months straight, 24/7, doing nothing but spending at your shop. And we've done that before. The Amber wasn't the first time we've done it. And It's just hard on your people, man. It's hard on you, and I've got young kids and I don't need to do that again. I'd be happy with just building great cars and not having to worry about an Amber or whatever again. Now, I wouldn't take anything away from it. And if somebody came to me and says, I want to do it, as long as there's no deadline and we can do the same kind of things we were doing before, sure. But
So
I don't want to do anything tomorrow.
You're going to sit here on this podcast and tell me that the most important thing is to take care of the customer, regardless of what his goals are, whether it's go to a show and see how it finishes or whatever, and then take those jobs as they come and make those customers happy and not chase the trophies. I find that hard to believe. There's so many people out there only wanting to chase that trophy, thinking that that's going to change their life. Like you just said, you came back, you had to take the trash out. We've had to come back from awards and take the trash out. The customers that you've put off to make that customer happy, now it's time to take care of those guys.
Yeah, he's not super stoked about
Yeah, and that guy might only be wanting to relive his childhood fantasy with whatever that car is, and he wants you to build him the baddest version of his dream, right? And take care of that guy. He doesn't give a shit about awards. He wants a nice-ass car, but he doesn't want to ever take it to a car show. He wants to drive it. He wants to do all that kind of stuff. I think it's powerful what you just said, especially for a lot of young builders out there, to know that take care of the customer.
Yes.
We already talked about you don't do everything the customer wants just because the customer wants it. You've got to build that relationship, right? You got to be able to pass a little gas if you're watching Netflix. Get past that point, right? But you still
blown away how seamlessly you transitioned through that.
People know exactly what you're talking about. There's when you're dating, you're not going to fart on the first.
We don't need to keep bringing it up. I'm sorry.
Right. People get it.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
You get it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
But
yes.
you get past that point now, and then after y'all are on that relationship and you've broken those barriers, you do the best of the dream that y'all have collectively come together. Yeah. It might be an award, it might not be an award, but you don't steer a customer that's like, hey, I want the baddest ass Fox body Mustang, and I want to recreate this, and we're going to do the tweed. Grand National, for example, right? You don't take Scott and you don't try to tell him, like, you know what we need to do? We need to build this thing fucking badass, and we need to go for like the Sloan, or we need to go for this. We need to battle of builders. We need to do any of that stuff. Nothing against those awards, but he doesn't give a shit about that. So why try to talk him into it? Because the reason why shops try to talk them into it is because they think that's going to change their lives. And you're just telling them right now
that it's not.
That it's great. That customer had a fucking blast because he wanted to do that. And you made that customer happy. And you won that award. But it also didn't change your life. You wouldn't trade it. It was fucking awesome. Nope. You took care of that customer. But it didn't mean other customers are coming in and be like, dude, I've been sitting on piles of cash waiting for a guy in Kansas that I could find to give it to and just build me another show car. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think
so?
No, I don't think so.
From an educational standpoint, right? If you want to take this and like utilize it, I keep thinking of that dude. We met that kid Logan, right, from K32 Customs.
Yep, Logan Atkins.
Logan Atkins, cool kid. Awesome kid. And I'm thinking about a kid like that, right? And he's probably in his head, like he built a beautiful patinaed it's Ford, right?
Yeah, thing's badass.
Yeah, super cool little truck, right? And I'm sure in his head, he's thinking like, what I need to do, I need to win, like I need to be like a street machine of the year, or I need to build an AMBR winner. But at the same time, like maybe he just built something that's like really bitching, and he already found where he needs to be, right? And he doesn't need to be there. Like from growing that hot rod shop and growing what he's got, the future for him might be building 10 more of those things just like that it might not be that he needs to step up and build that over the top car that, like you said, it takes its toll on both you as an owner and your entire staff. I mean, it certainly,
or a guy might come in and say, I want to win truck of the year. But
sure,
at the same time, the guy that comes in and says, I've got 70 grand to spend, right? I want a bitchin' ass Survivor build or whatever, 150 grand. Don't try to talk him into winning truck of the year.
Of course. That's it right there.
You know what I'm saying?
We learned that. Yes. That took a while to understand that, but yeah.
Well, we're coming to the standard question part. I've tweaked it a little bit. Tweaked it along on the fly.
Really?
Yeah, first question.
And you didn't tell me about this?
No.
Did he tell you about this?
No.
Yeah, I was not.
I want to know the weirdest shit
Give
you've
some
done with
notes.
that trophy. What have you drank out of it or ate out of it, or what's the weirdest thing that y'all have done? Because I'm telling you, I guarantee you something done's weird. Either the guys in the shop,
got a gummy
the
worm
customer, or you.
You're going to be so disappointed, Josh. You don't get to fucking take the trophy home. You get this little dinky one that's sold at a $20 trophy shop.
You can still drink some shit out of it.
I have not drank anything. I don't even have it. Jeff has it.
Oh,
Shit,
Jeff,
I haven't even seen that.
Well,
trophy
call
since
Jeff
it's
and let me
home.
know, because I guarantee Jeff's done some weird shit with it. There's
At least
That I believe. I guarantee you, Jeff.
at least chips and guac, like something.
I know it's what Jesse. He's done that. He's got
How many? Got so many of them.
how many of those?
I think Jesse's
like Tupperware.
Jesse's entire kitchen is just nothing.
just
but,
Riddlers.
Yeah,
Riddler trophies.
Riddler trophy. Jesse and his family, they eat and drink out of nothing but like Riddler and AMBR.
I can see his kid eating SpaghettiOs out of a Riddler trophy. Your very first car and a story about that car.
Oh, I thought you were going to try and guess this kind of shit, Josh.
Oh well,
Okay,
all right. Glad
All right.
you brought that up.
that's fine. If you want to put the stuff to a challenge, all right. I got a little bit of background.
How old are you?
46.
I'm 47.
47.
Not a bad start.
Okay.
I picked up on little cues. He's talking about 2008, and he backed out of college and stuff like that, or whatever. So I was putting some stuff together. I'm not going to take full credit for just guessing that. So you're 2 years older than me. So you graduated high school in 95? 94?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm about to be
Fellow
45.
probe driver.
So 94. So that means 92, you're 16. You're in Kansas in 92, right?
Yeah.
All right. 92, 16.
You want me to give you a little more of a hint, though?
No, hold on.
Something that's
Okay.
a tough era, man.
Hold on. I know.
Well, I was going to tell you, in Kansas, you can drive at 14.
All right. All right. So
Does it
that's
have to be a
90.
tractor?
90. So in 90, was at 14, you're not getting a fairly new car at 14. Your dad's got a little money, but you got 80 acres. I'm trying to think. I'm putting all this stuff together. So
Like
was
fucking
it
Sherlock Holmes deduction going on?
was
here.
your vehicle at 14 years old more than 10 years old?
No.
No, it wasn't. Okay. Very key piece. And the dad that was a businessman that had a little bit of money was paying guys. That's key. You got to pay attention to the whole podcast. That's the way to get to the level that we're at. So it was 90. Obviously, it was domestic, right?
Yep.
Yep. It was an American car. It's a truck.
I've
Ooh.
seen something.
He never talked about. It's not a Bronco 2, is it?
No.
Okay.
I'm seeing.
But it's a truck. It's Kansas. You got snow.
Is
It's
it?
not a car. There's no way it's a car. If it's a car, it's got to be
I think it's a
the
car,
GM
dude.
platform, like the you're talking about Corsica, Lumina, that kind of platform.
I think it's here's what I'm thinking.
Is giving no clues. Over
Yeah,
there.
it's off in left field.
That's S10 Blazer,
No, blue came
four-wheel
up.
drive.
There's a reoccurring theme of blue. Okay, I'm thinking it's like a navy blue, late '80s. I mean '89, maybe a '90 Ford Tempo, 4-door.
No,
Remember the Ford Tempo?
dude, his parents aren't putting him in a Tempo.
It
And
was
he's
like
not driving
that's a
Tempo.
responsible car.
No, it's a S10. It's a Ford.
All right,
It's
that's
an
what
S10 Blazer 4-wheel drive. Final answer.
No. So I had a Blazer. I had a full-size Blazer, but before that, my first car was a 1986 IROC Z.
Oh,
Ooh,
In the fucking snow and shit at 14.
your hair was
Go
much longer
snow.
back then
Good-
too.
Get after it.
so do you have a
The hair. Yeah.
do you have a son?
yeah.
Do you have a son
That's
that's
it.
almost the same age as you then?
So, all right. So it's IROC. Was it the blue with the gray ground effects? Blue, maroon,
White, red interior.
Holy shit! Was it a 5-speed or was that an auto?
It was
Man.
an automatic, 305.
God, I'd love to have a white IROC with a 5-speed.
If it was a 305, it wasn't a Z28. It was an RS car.
No, you could get a
Swapped
305
it,
in an IROC Z.
Really? A 305?
I bought another one.
I'm sorry, you said IROC. Z28 was what I was thinking. It wasn't a Z28 with 305.
Damn.
I'm telling you. Hey, you stumped me.
Dude,
You stumped me.
I apologize. I hope you don't take offense
All
to
of the
to the
stuff.
Ford
Well,
Tempo thing. I was just
But
thinking
there's,
like out in the
that's
country.
a little off.
it's-
That might have been something that we might have taken out in fields and crushed.
Exactly.
But
They were of
the
means,
Blazer
dude.
was on.
80 acres.
Josh was going the right direction with the Blazer. That happened later on.
I was going the ironic approach, where it's always like
Yeah.
I was taking the opposite of what may have been,
I know. I had to
I was
ask,
rolling the fucking dice.
I had
dude.
to ask domestic because I was thinking fucker could have had a little Beamer. I started going down that road.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck
Kansas?
no.
Yeah.
Not
Fuck
in Kansas,
no.
dude. You get you get
No.
the shit kicked out of you.
I grew up in
Kansas.
Augusta, Kansas, man. That's a farm town. You had one of those, you get your ass kicked.
See? That's right.
What?
I
So
was
tell
thinking
us
square body Dakota, but
That's
Good
a
pick.
good pull.
That
It's
got
a
shot
pretty
down.
fucking
Good
pull.
pick.
I just
good pick.
yeah.
What? Tell us a funny story about the Z. IROC.
So, in keeping with the terms of this punk ass kid having an 86 Camaro at 14 years old, I was driving in 8th grade. So we could drive at 14. I was in 8th grade, got my driver's
That
license.
seems like such a smart decision.
Oh, it's bright, right? You let your kid get a Camaro and he thinks that it's fast as shit, but it's not.
You
But,
think about your kids being 2 years away from driving to school by themselves.
I think about your kid now
yeah, good
driving.
luck.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, and that it's scary, right, to think about that. But yeah, at 14. So in 8th grade, we got out 15 minutes later than the high schoolers. So I'm leaving. We had to park on the street because obviously you don't have a parking lot for the students in 8th grade. So there were 3 of us that drove in 8th grade. And so I'm pulling out and I'm heading home and I see these seniors chasing me. And I thought, shit, I got to get out of town as fast as I can. They're going to beat my ass. And so I'm heading out of town. But we had this windy road that would get back to my parents' house. And it was called Thunder Road. It's the only windy road we have in Kansas. Everything else is north, south, east, and west. And so I take off down Thunder Road. Well, my birthday's in January, so that's right after the snow is about, but the snow is still there. This was probably in March. Snow had melted. There's sand on the side of the road. So little Tim's going outside of outside of Augusta about as fast as he can, hits a patch of that sand, spins that fucker around 360 degrees, lands in the ditch. Man, I'm about as bright-eyed as I can be. Those seniors are popping out of their car. I'm thinking they're still going to try and beat my ass. I start that fucker back up, pop it in gear, and I get out of there. That scared the shit out of me. I didn't think the car could go that fast in 360.
Damn. Dude, did I tell the my high school IROC story?
Give me the
Yeah,
highlight.
I feel like the
high school
car
IROC story.
flips, guy exits the car, airborne,
Shit.
gone. No? Didn't tell that one?
Oh,
Dude.
yeah. Who was that?
It was Blake Baldwin. So, the kid in high school, right? So, I had built the 69 Camaro. And, high school, I'm basically, like, picture me, combination.
Here we go. Hold on.
It's
Hold on.
like-
What are we going to picture you as?
All right. It's a combination like
Vin Diesel.
John Milner mixed with Vin Diesel, a little bit of Peter Fonda.
That's all I've thought of that.
like,
I don't know how many
kinda-
times I've looked at you
yeah.
and been like, Vin Diesel.
Exactly. You wrap that all up.
But in wide leg Genco jeans.
Exactly, with a chain wallet. Okay. So, everybody's driving Jeep Grand Cherokees, and nobody had like cool cars. Nobody knew like. I thought that car like chicks would dig it. Nobody fucking give a shit, right? There's one other kid. He's got an 87 or 89 IROC, the maroon one. Got a cowl hood on it. It's got a 5-speed tuned port. Somebody put headers on it. It's got torque thrusts. It looked cool, right? It sounded good.
But he
Had,
thought he was cool.
Big slash cut. So he's talking all kinds of shit all the time, right? So anyway, finally, like the showdown finally goes down. I blow his fucking doors off. And like the day after, I think it was such a good ass whooping that he was just reckless. Like he had no care in the world. He was just like, his life meant nothing after that, right?
Right.
He's driving straight through downtown Deerfield, and in downtown Deerfield is the police station. And there's a subtle right hand kind of sweeper. Somehow he's coming through there at like 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour. Car gets loose. This is like, you're like with 35 mile an hour street, probably. Car gets loose. It spins out, ends up, hits the curb in the lawn of the Deerfield police station. In the fucking front lawn of the police station. Just goes airborne, starts flipping. It's T-tops. It ejects him out of the T-tops. Dude goes fucking flying. Car like goes end over end. Just there is nothing left to the car at all. Dude he stands up. He's in the lawn of the Deerfield police station, just stands up.
Wasn't me.
Not a scratch on him. Walks away. Right?
Do you just walk right into the police station at that
No,
point?
he
You
he
like, "Come
pieced
here."
out,
Down to
obviously.
Dunkin' Donuts. But I've been here.
He
Like,
became.
y'all see that, right?
He became super religious after that.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just walked it off.
He talked to somebody in those flips.
Yeah, at
He's
some
like,
point.
I promise I'll stop. I'll never do it again. I'll never touch it again. Best car movie and why?
I'm gonna have to go back to the early days and just Cannonball Run. I mean, all of those movies.
Yeah,
that's
buddy.
a great movie.
Yeah,
Funny and underrated. So fucking funny.
I know it is. I talk. That's got to be in my top 3, if not number 1. And you run into people all the time. Either you've seen it and you fucking love it, or somebody's like, I think I remember it, and like you haven't seen it. If you think you remember it,
Yeah.
it's funny as shit. There's so many people in it too.
Yeah.
So many great people.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh,
fun.
and great. Hell, Bigfoot was in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Great
that
car,
movie.
man.
Love that. I'm gonna watch it again tonight.
my
The
son,
the opening scene of those girls driving that Countach.
Yeah.
my son watched
Oh
it
my
recently. He
God.
loves all that
Forever.
stuff from that era.
Yeah.
Great movie. Great movie. Favorite car you've ever built?
It's your favorite child.
I probably should say Jeff's Roadster, but early on we built a 57 Ford for my dad. And it's more sentimental than anything. Not that it was his car or anything, but his dad died when he was 10 years old. He was a traveling salesman for Paramount Pictures. And his
Wow.
company car back in the day was a 57 Ford. And it was a nondescript, I'm sure, 300 base model. But my dad said, one of these days I want to build a 57 Ford. And so we did that and did it to the things that he wanted. It didn't really have anything to do with what his dad's car looked like, but it was the things he wanted that a 57 Ford Custom, mild custom might have. And the day it was done was a weekend, and my uncle was in town, and we went down to pick up the car. I was riding with my dad, and we were about to get on the interstate, and he looked over at me and he said, this is the first time I've been in a 57 Ford since my dad died. And I thought that was a pretty poignant moment, just being together with him, and it was just really cool. So I'd say that 57 Ford.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. I got to ask you though, what's he selling? What's he selling for Paramount in 57? He's a traveling salesman.
I mean, he's selling movies, so he's going to movie theaters, selling the movies to the theaters. I mean, back then you had to buy those movies to go, to
be able to play them for your.
Yeah,
it's fucking awesome.
He even worked. He even did during World War II. He received some sort of I should know what this is, but he received an award from the president at the time for in World War II. He supplied the U.S. military with movies, and he received a commendation for it. It's pretty cool.
Damn,
that's really cool.
Dude, that is.
They're always amazed
right.
at
I was selling
occupation.
I was selling movies on AOL in like the early 90s to some of my buddies.
That's different.
Yes.
Not the same thing.
So much. Yeah, so close. You didn't receive any commendation? Huh. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
There's probably two. My friend that passed away from Augusta, that was my close friend whose dad was a car guy. He told me that anything worth doing is worth doing right. And that was, those are very simple pieces of advice, but when it came to cars, he just said, if you're going to work with customers, if you're going to work with people, if you're going to be basically you need to treat them right and give them what they're after. But anything you do for them, do it 100%. Don't give them 90%. Don't give them 70%. And then my dad, when I was opening my shop, he's, I don't know what the conversation was, but he said, just be yourself, be honest, treat people the way they want to be treated, or the way you want to be treated. And, those are all simple things, but shit, in the end, those are the best pieces of advice. Those are the best things that carry you on. And, the customers appreciate the fact that you're going to tell them exactly what's going on, and not bullshit them about it. So I think those are important things. Simple, but important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim, it's been fucking
stuff.
awesome.
Yeah, it's been a blast, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to finally catch up, dude. You've been so busy with Chevy that, like I said, it's been hard to grab you and shoot the shit at the shows, but this has been fun, man. It's been great catching up. And
where are you going to be at next?
Oh, that's a good question. Like I said, we're not finishing up for any shows. We may end up at the Roadster Show just to go, but outside of that, I don't have any plans, which I like.
Dude, honestly, I'd go to the Roadster Show. I'd bring the trophy, bring the jacket, and just like hang out, just show everybody, just hang out at the front. And then they'd let a lot of, former winners do that, sign autographs and stuff like that. I mean, everybody will know. I mean, 3 guys will know that you were on the podcast. Fucking
those Australians.
Those Aussies. Oh, dude, seriously, fucking
fun,
awesome.
dude.
If you're out there, I think we'll be out there. Let's come by the booth and come by the rig and have a beer.
Yeah, love to hang out.
Tyou guys. Appreciate everything.
See you soon.
Dude. Take care.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Big thanks again to Tim Devlin. Remember, you can keep up with Tim at Devlin Rod and Customs or DevlinRodandCustoms.com. We got to do a whiskey review.
We do.
Whiskey review time.
You showed those Florida Georgia line guys what's up. That's how you fucking cut
Now
a
that you
riff.
put it that way, probably
It
shouldn't have
actually
done it.
makes them sound kind of good, doesn't it?
No.
No?
No.
Yeah.
Widow Jane Decadence. That's what we're drinking. That's what we're reviewing.
Right?
I liked it.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
I liked it.
It's really good.
Quite decadent.
I've been a Widow Jane fan for a couple years now. Do you remember when we first looked at each other like, fuck, this shit's actually really good?
Yeah, we shied away from it forever because
Yeah.
We had several where like looking at
Is this
you
a
ever
new-
tried this? Like, it's like $80 and the name sounds pretty shitty and low quality, so I'm gonna pass.
Yeah.
Because it's New York, right?
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
Yes.
I didn't know
Well,
that.
it's-
distilled or bottled or what is
It's
it?
bottled in New York. It's got limestone
White,
water.
White Plains, New York.
I'm gonna go
That's
ahead and
Corona.
Heineken.
people are gonna be like, "You realize that's just MGP or raw squib?"
Is it who's
It's
Whose is it?
It's MGP raw squib.
Okay.
Now MGP is no longer MGP.
Really?
Yeah. So whatever. You know what? I don't give a fuck. The shit's fucking good. It's a blend. So they get all different ages. They do their blending. They do their own limestone water. This one in particular, the Decadence, right? Different than their 10-year. This one is a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys finished in maple syrup barrels, but not just any maple syrup barrels.
from
That
the
would
North?
be
Are they from the North Pole?
Crown maple syrup. It's the best maple syrup. And it's even got a recipe on there for a Crown Old Fashioned, if you would like to do it.
It's probably good.
On the back, Widow Jane Decadence. There is no other word to describe this. We took some of our legendary bourbons and finished them in barrels that held New York's finest artisanal maple syrup from Crown Maple. The result is a rich, creamy, smooth, and light, slightly sweet mouthful of whiskey flavor that is beyond good. It's decadent. According to the Surgeon General, women should not drink alcohol because they should be making sandwiches or
sandwiches.
something. I don't know. I will say the description of the whiskey itself, it couldn't be more dead on. What? I was reading.
Yeah, and we connected there too.
Yeah, we did because we were thinking the same thing. So we've been Widow Jane 10-year fans for a while. I picked up the 13 and the 14-year
You big
over
fucking
the
baller.
Thanksgiving weekend. I also picked up this one. Had this with my brother-in-law.
Did you bring that here?
No, I did not. No, not this specific one.
You brought it.
Maybe.
Yeah, Phil brought it.
Did
Phil
I?
brought this one
So-
for
It's
here.
been sitting up here for a long
Yeah.
time then.
It has.
'Cause I bought one a while
you don't
back.
get to stake claim to that then.
No.
Because you're out there just buying bottles of bourbon,
No,
So
but not bringing them here.
is this the fourth bottle in a row that I fucking knocked out of the park? I'm just
Phil's on
wondering.
Phil's on a fucking roll.
he's gonna fall down the stairs.
Yeah.
He's so you better be careful. 'Cause you're-
He's bringing copper. He's bringing copper fiddlers because he's been bringing.
yeah,
Hangers.
you're riding high. Yeah, you're riding high in the saddle. No, I didn't say I bought this one. I'm saying I had this one over Thanksgiving, and it was really fucking good. So I was anxious for everybody to try it. Once I read the description on the back after I tasted it, usually you read descriptions and you're like, eh.
Yeah. I didn't want to sound like an idiot. I had no idea it was aged in maple syrup, but it was almost like a pancake breakfast kind of flavor to it.
Yep.
And then I was like, it's just sweet. Then you hear like, oh shit, that's
A
why it's
little bit of Waffle House in
It's
it. Huh?
this is one. Now this is going to be one.
Dude, do you realize what I just said?
Yep.
A little bit of Waffle House.
Let's not air that.
Okay.
That's
Well-
we're gonna bottle lightning right there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are.
Yep.
I know what you're going with.
Keep going on about sure. review.
So
Waffle light.
where was it? Stop. We're giving it all away. Where was I going?
Do you like it?
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I would say everybody that can find this, go out and buy it. It's that good. This is not going to be a one that you're going to mix with other bourbons throughout the night. You're not going to take a little bit of this and then drink some. This is your bottle for the night. You're going to drink.
It's a little sweet.
But
it's good.
It's great.
Right.
But if you drink something else after this,
Ooh, I would like to try this with the Ambarana barreled
That's a pretty good pull.
Foregate.
Yeah,
That kind of has that honey-ish
Does.
flavor.
I mean, we could make that happen.
Can we? You know a guy?
That's the kind of stuff we can do here in the podcast studio. We have access to these things.
Do it.
Is there an open one of those Widow? Hey, snag the Widow Jane 10 on the back row. There's an open one too. We reviewed it, didn't we? At some point, I don't know if we did.
Sure, we did.
We get some new snifter. This is not enough for anybody else to taste, so I'm just
Sure
gonna
it is.
kill it.
Yeah, you can hit it
Yeah,
on these guys. You want to hit them in this or hit the Widow Jane 10?
I'm gonna hit this.
All right, there you go. We have ourselves a little concoction going on here.
You have yourself a little what?
Concoction.
That's how you're going with that.
Widow Jane. Let's see if we've actually reviewed it.
We've drank it. It was so nice of you to save some for Josh.
That was pretty slim pickings.
They can cut all this out, but we're trying to find Widow Jane. As far as wrote down,
I don't think we did.
we have not reviewed it. It could be in the stack of yet to be put on the sheet, but I don't think we've done it in the last.
It's a good back-to-backer. This is a little bit more cinnamon.
Exactly. Way more cinnamon.
Yeah.
Like actual cinnamon hard candy.
But you got a few.
Fireball.
You got a few bold flavors there.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's still got the sweetness to it, and then a little cinnamon.
I'm
Let's
telling
just
you,
cut to the chase here. This stuff's
this
really
shit
good.
is really, really good.
And
It is a little harder to find.
Somebody hit it with a review.
Widow Jane Decadence is. I'm judging this bottle. All right? I'm not going against bourbons. I'm just saying I enjoyed it this much.
You might be considered an alcoholic, but this would be a great breakfast bourbon.
You could kill this bottle by yourself on a Saturday for brunch. It's a 91 proof and it's sweet, so I mean it's obviously going to be very easy. Anybody, if you're just getting into this, or if you're like a whiskey snob, you're gonna fucking like it. There's no reason why you wouldn't like it. There's some whiskey snobs gonna be like, they want a little more heat, they want a little more proof, something like that. I really, really, really like it. I'm giving it an 8.2. Yeah, it's
bold-
fucking
big.
good.
It's big.
Dude, it's a bold review, but it's warranted. It really is.
It's good shit. It's good shit because it's
different in a
Yeah.
good way.
if I was if this was a straight up bourbon and it wasn't finished and we weren't talking about the sweetness and we were just going up against something else, whatever, it might be different.
I'll tell you what, dude, it dunks on the 10-year. It really does. Because I like the 10-year quite a bit. And I like it again after sipping
Yeah,
it.
you do.
But it's just smooth, it's simple. That's got a lot of
got a
flavor
little
to
complex.
it.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of flavor to it. I love it.
I hate to use the Noah's Mill.
Dude, I'm
restaurant,
going to 8.0 on it.
I was going to go solid 8. Just good even number.
8.0, 8.0, 8.2 on the Widow Jane Decadence. And anxious to see the 13 and 14 year. We'll have to see what those are like. This shit's good. And it's still not stupid expensive. I think this one's a little bit more. I mean, these are $80-$90. I mean,
I don't think
granted,
it was
it's
over 100.
this is
Well, you just bought it recently. I bought it a while ago.
it's
I'd have
probably
probably,
119 or something like that. It's getting up there.
having not had the Decadence, I'd have probably rated the 10-year higher. Because the 10-year is phenomenal.
It's fucking
but
good.
It just lacks like that.
You can't drink them back to back.
Right, it just lacks the punch, the flavor profile that does. It's good.
These fly under the radar. I know they're lower proof, but they've got a great flavor.
Doesn't matter.
They're still available out there for a decent price point for what I consider I consider this a top shelf bourbon.
100% I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
8.0, 8.0, and 8.2 on the Widow Jane Decadence. What are we going to give the 10 year? Can you rate the 10 year right now? I'm telling you this. You can't rate it low because after how sweet this is of the Decadence, and you drinking this, I thought that this was going to be like, ugh.
No, it's
It's really good.
That's a crazy smooth bourbon. You'd be hard pressed to find something in that price point that stacks up to it that you can get.
Yeah.
I'll say, because it's not readily available, but it's available. I'm going 7.6, dude. 7.6 on the 10-year. I'm going 7.6, and I'm gonna put an asterisk next to it. That's a fucking buy it, and it's probably a buy. It's a grab 2 bottles of it, because that's a go-to. I feel like the 10-year is a go-to. It's a little more obtainable.
It's good you can drink and not feel guilty about.
You don't feel bad
killing it.
consuming it.
I'm going to go ahead and let y'all in a secret. I buy these in I.W. Harper 15s
in
all
by
the-
cases.
all the time. I drink this shit, and I'm not saying I drink it a lot. I'm going to have to give it an 8.0 because I drink it that much. I
On the
really
10
like
year?
it on the 10 year.
Okay.
I'm giving it.
Bold.
I know. I just a lot goes into that. The fact that it's that good and that you can get it all the time. Is there bourbons that rate higher and all that stuff? Absolutely, there is.
How
But
would
if
you
you
rate
can
that to a Old Elk weeded?
I'd probably have double wheated or straight wheat.
Just the regular weeded, the good one.
I put this one over the weeded.
Really?
I do.
He's wrong.
Yeah.
I do. I put
Everyone
it over the
has their
weeded.
time to be
I know.
wrong, and this
No,
is
everybody's got a
yours.
different flavor.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a different flavor. I go to 8.0. He went 7.6. You went
7.5.
7.5.
Slightly tainted after drinking the sweet one. That
It's
hard to go.
that's
to the
why
bottom.
I bumped
you're-
up is because of how good I thought it was after that.
If you're laying those out there, right, you're putting the fuck is it? I'm losing my mind.
Old elk.
You're putting the old elk weeded. You've got old elk weeded. You've got the 10-year. You've got the Decadence. I'm grabbing the Decadence first. Then I'm jumping
Old elk.
to the old elk. Then I'm gonna grab the 10-year. That's where I'm at.
The we
But
haven't
Pretty big fucking bangers for non-Kentucky bourbons.
Have we tried the new 10-year old elk weeded?
Was it
I
10 year?
started
I got an 8-year, I think.
I started losing track
you?
of them.
It's 2 years less than mine.
I started losing track of them.
They're getting a bit much.
Well, my problem with them is just it's right
Gotta
there.
read.
Well, it's right there with the barrel bourbons.
I
Like,
know.
dude, put the work in and change the fucking bottle. Change the bottle.
Change
Change,
the
the,
label.
fucking label.
Yeah.
Make it interesting for me. For me, like I'm about the collection. It's
You don't want to
it's
look
the
like you got
experience.
20.
You just bought a
exactly
case.
Right.
Yeah, I
You don't
want
look like
something.
you got a case
right.
of Weller
I want
12 or
something
a case of
unique.
special or like a case of
Exactly.
bland. You don't want to look like you have cases of things. I get it.
He looked like he had a case of COVID.
Yeah.
Fuck you. And Josh is only saying that because Josh's wife performs fellatio in exchange for cases of bourbon.
Whatever it takes to get cases. I'm not doing
That's
it.
that's the beauty, that's the beauty of
Was
editing.
that a shot at me?
That's the beauty of editing. I'm just saying, but
She won't care.
yeah, at any rate.
Thanks again for everybody listening to Oil and Whiskey with the Roadster Shop, an Ironclad original. Tim Devlin was awesome.
Yeah, dude, great guy, awesome fucking cars, cool shop. Make sure you give him a follow.
We'll see you again next week.